Anand, it's a pleasure to have you with us. How have you been?
All good, Ashu. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here, speaking with you.
Anand, this was a discussion that I've particularly been looking forward to, right? Because there's so much which has happened, right? When you talk of startups, of course, it's a very different ball game, right? You talk of mid-sized companies, it's a very different ball game. But as soon as you start to look at very large enterprises like Vedanta, right? It's a very different ball game, right? You're talking about a very very large ship, right? Which has many people in it, many businesses, many layers, of operations, and it's a complex play, right? It's not something which is as simple as, it's not as simple a decision making, right? It's a fairly difficult one, right? And I think this discussion essentially will try and unravel some of those bits, right? And I think COVID has been a very unreal time, right? It's made us look at digital, in a very different way, right? I think it's become a primary means of going to the market, right, and interacting with our stakeholders. So this is a discussion that I'm particularly looking forward to. I think with that context, right, I'd love you to have a, I'd love you to give us a quick round of introduction before we move into the discussion.
Thank you, Ashu. So yeah, I think if I look back at my own journey, right, of course, I've been with the Vedanta Group for the last 3 years. I joined the oil and gas business to drive digital transformation.
Right.
And as of last year, I've been sort of given the charter to drive digital transformation for the group. Little about me, electronics engineer by background. I spent a lot of my early career in industrial automation and process control.
Right.
Traveling across manufacturing plants, being part of remote engineering teams when I used to work with General Electric, work with the companies like Honeywell, Siemens, largely in the industrial automation space.
Right.
I've also lived a consulting career, mainly in the oil and gas space, working with large integrated oil companies, being partners to them in digital transformation. So that's really broadly about me. At Vedanta, I would say we've come a reasonable way in terms of digital transformation. Like you rightly said in the introduction, we obviously are a collection of multiple businesses, each of them, very autonomous, very empowered, at driving growth for themselves.
Right.
So in that sense, several opportunities to digitally transform the company, and truly excited. I have the opportunity to shape it and execute for Vedanta.
Right. Wonderful. Anand, I'm gonna start with COVID, right? And I think it's been a very very difficult year, right? For each one of us, right, at a personal level and at our work, right? Because we were never kind of geared for literally a shutdown, right? That we went through, a lockdown that we went through, right? And that kind of gave very little space to leadership to adjust, react, understand, right? The entire sequence of what had happened, right? What had hit us, right? What it also made difficult was essentially in terms of how the economy is going to go forward, right? Given something of this nature and sort of hit us, and not just say in India, but globally, right? How has 2020 been for you in that sense, right? How have you sort of gone through that? What was the early phase like, right? And how has that journey been, right? Last say 1.5 years for you at Vedanta, right? In terms of the transformation bit that you've implemented.
No, I think good question, Ashu. So if I look back at, let's say, around February of last year, so we've been like any other industrial organization, remote working from home was never, the norm, right? I think at our plants, even in our corporate offices, we always believe in being in the offices and working. We had the collaboration tools like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and all of that at our disposal all the time. The good thing is, over the last 2-3 years, we've consciously made sure that we have these technologies and tools enabling our people, and we always had the ability to remotely work, securely work. But this all came to the fore. I still remember February when we were quickly called into an executive meeting to figure out what enhance our ability to work remotely from home. And the good news, of course, was that we were always equipped for it. Right.
Right.
I think it's really started there. And if I look at some of these tools, the usage and adoption of these tools pre-COVID and post-COVID, I think it has ballooned significant amounts of time. Right. I think
Right.
10x, 20x sort of usage increase there.
Right.
And of course, if I look at business, certainly in the oil and gas business, there were cost pressures, and you will recollect the price of oil, going down to close to even $18 a barrel.
Right.
So clearly, the focus for the first 2 quarters during that time was cost optimization, and
Right.
anything that we could do from digital, was always on the cards. And I think we did turn around quickly. I mean, again, we had some foundations in place in
Right.
terms of optimization solutions, automation solutions that were already deployed, that became very useful. In fact, at most of our plants, I think the scenario was having the ability to do more with less, because
Right.
if people were calling in sick, you still had to manage operations
Right.
with whatever staff you had. So all of the automation and decision enabling solutions that have been deployed over the last couple of years, I think really came to use.
Right.
And I would say purely from an employee health, safety, return to work when things were settling down. Again, we sort of came up with the quick mobile apps, ability to trace,
Right.
Contact trace and things like that. Because for us, in most of the industries and businesses that we play in, it's very important that we have business continuity. We continue
Right.
to run the plant, and some of this very also important for the country, right? I mean, if you look at oil, if you look at gas, and so on. So it's been an interesting year. Like I said, switch from a pure cost focus to also then quickly turning around, delivering solutions that becomes useful for the organizations in this time.
Very interesting. I think that you highlighted a bunch of very interesting points, right? I think business continuity risk, and I think and I think very quickly turning around, from a plugging in standpoint where you created apps and so on and so forth, right? Anand, before I move into some of those aspects, right? One particular question that I have is that your business is not concentrated in one location, one area, right? This is a business which is spread out, right? You're dealing with massive physical infrastructure, right? Which is at a distance, right? And thus, unlike many other businesses where essentially transformation meant moving communication online, right? Or essentially enabling more and more communication, transparency, task assignments, and so many other things, right? But it was all mostly communication related, right? In your case, it was also about infrastructure monitoring, risk that you were running on such infrastructure and so on and so forth, right? And there have been technologies that you kind of, that have been implemented, right? But how did that change in around COVID, or how was that particular bit around this particular time?
Well, like I said, Ashu, I think the good news was that we had these physical infrastructure instrumented and sensorized already, which means that they were already emitting data. Now, but if you look at the roles and people within the organization that were using it, there were probably more people localized, using it. And then certainly the visibility to the corporate and the enterprise was always there.
Right.
But since we had relatively less people in the field, at various points in time because of, COVID and the pandemic, and also the larger teams working remotely, the ability to move the data and make it visible for the larger set of stakeholders was always, opportunity and challenge, if I say, in the last year. Again, from a technology standpoint, I think we were very equipped. So typically in an industrial organization like us, Ashu, it's basically integrating our operational technology environment, which is our plant systems, to the information technology or the enterprise systems. And in the last, again, I would say 3-4 years, we have consciously focused on that integration, making sure that we are able to scale out and provide people visibility, whenever it is required.
Right.
I would say that there were points in time when this infrastructure was stretched a bit. But I think given the technologies we have today,
Right.
again, we could really quickly work with some of our partners in the ecosystem and help turn around things. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. I was recently in a conversation, right? And I was in a conversation with, an ecosystem enabler, right? One of the marquee names in the industry, right? And during that conversation, something very very interesting, surprising, funny came up, right? Which was where they said that for about 3 4 years we've continued to highlight how important is it for organizations to transform, right, across many many paths. And we've been working very closely with them, but the decision making process was the longest, right? Largely because a lot of technology adoption was essentially considered to be a cost center play, and cost of doing business is something that everybody wants to optimize. As soon as you start talking of businesses that are in commoditized or commodity areas, right, that sensitivity is automatically higher because there was little that they could do, right? There was so much of uncertainty around pricing and and how policies and so on and so forth, right? And he mentions that and come to 2020, all of a sudden, of what we were evangelizing became a very key requirement, and it became it was the other way around, right? Where organizations are reaching out to us saying that how quickly can we deploy this, right? uh, how has that relationship been, right? Have you had that moment, or were you always in a position where you were kind of calibrated, you were planned, given that the spread in the ecosystem and the infrastructure that you deal with was always such that you were in a way prepared to handle in an event like this?
Yeah, no, I think I certainly can relate to it, and I tend to agree. I mean, I think there were, I would say, specific business opportunities, solutions, where we've sort of aggressively reached out to the ecosystem and made decisions faster, wanting to onboard them. I mean, to that extent, I certainly agree, Ashu, that the hunger on the organization's side to adopt some of the solution was faster.
Right.
I mean, something, of course, unique to Vedanta, right from the top, there is huge mind share for, digital and technology
Right.
investment. So I would say it only probably got quite aggressively accelerated
Right.
during the last year, but I think the mind share and we wanting to transform as a group and become a very digitally driven organization has always been there. But certainly, yes, I would say what you're saying is something that we've also seen in the last year and a half.
Right. Right. One interesting question that I have, and I'm taking a step away, right? And here it's more about, so of course you highlighted how important, and the way leadership has been contemplating now digitalization, right? But when you come to digitalization, one very important stakeholder in the entire scheme of things is the is are the employees, right? Other people in the organization, right? And when you look at the entire digital transformation bit, right, across many many organizations, one of the constants that they've kind of struggled with, right, was essentially the people side adoption, right? The people side issues of of adopting technology, right? It moved from factors like insecurity to awareness to adoption and the flexibility around it, right? Using the system and so on and so forth, right? And come to an event like this where everybody was kind of locked up in their own houses, right? It's been very difficult for people to go out and for leadership to train people on, say, certain developments and certain options that happened during that time, right? How was it for you, right? How did you enable that particular bit? Has it been equally difficult? Because oil and gas is something which is set its own way, right? There are people who are set in their own ways, and you know what I mean, right? I'm what I'm trying to sort of get to, right? How has that particular been for you? I mean, the people side challenge, right? How difficult has that been, and how have you addressed it?
Awesome. No, I think when it comes to, I mean, with or without the pandemic, when it comes to people and digital transformation, I think one of the biggest challenges when we are solving problems with technology in the business you need two distinct skills, right? I think one is understanding of the business problem and the opportunity, which is more functional in nature.
Right.
And then one is the breadth of fastly emerging technologies that are out there, AI, machine learning, IoT,
Right.
and so on. It's typically very hard to find people who have depth in both the subjects, right? I mean,
Right.
people would find business experts, but they wouldn't know much about technology, and vice versa, right?
Right.
So one of the things obviously we've focused on in the past few years is to consciously nurture talent at the intersection of people who can understand business, and also then cross skill them around technology.
Right.
And same for people in the digital and technology organization, clearly verticalize them, having them to focus on certain parts of the business.
Right.
So that certainly helped. Having said that, I would say, even very simple things like working on collaboration tools, um, having the ability to understand the various features, um, and things like that. I think it took a couple of quarters. Again, we've been a learning organization, I would say, all along. So we had the e-learning, self-paced learning content,
Right.
all the while. And again, this is another area where, to your previous question, I think we quickly reached out to our partners to have them do webinars and learning sessions for our employees to learn.
Right.
And I think since particularly in our context, the overall demographics, average age is of the order of about 28, 29. I think
Right.
it was a lot more easy for our teams to sort of quickly learn. Like I said at the beginning, it wasn't the norm. I mean, working from
Right.
home and remotely wasn't the norm. But because I think of the demographic, because of our ability to reach out to partners who did some learning sessions,
Right.
and our general philosophy of training people both on the tech and business side, certainly helped. If I look at the digital journey overall, Ashu, I think this is clearly an opportunity that still remains in terms of how do we do this at scale, where our folks in the business understand technology well, and
Right.
our technology teams understand business or areas of business well. So we continue to focus on that, and I think that will help us transform as a company as we go along as well.
Interesting. Anand, one thing that particularly when I speak with with leadership across many large organizations, right? One thing that comes across as a challenge, right, is that many of uh, across organizations, right, they operate in many silos, right? And it's usually difficult to bring these silos together, right? And I think you highlighted beautifully about the intersections, right? And then there is deployment at intersection level where people understand, right? So there's this consistent handover of things that continues to happen, right? Uh, is this something that was unique to the environment that we were in, or is this something that was kind of, you were at it, right? At leadership level, you were working on it, right? On defining these intersections and ensuring that there is continuity and there is no leakage whatsoever that happened, right? So at a process optimization level, was this something which was already on the canvas, or was there an event where an event like COVID, right, kind of made you rethink that entire the entire the image that was there, or the architecture that was sort of planned for business continuity growth?
Yeah, I would say it's more something that we've been consciously working on, Ashu.
Sure.
Not so much to do with the pandemic, but largely to do with the conscious choice that we want to digitally transform as a group.
Right.
We were very clear that digital transformation is not an isolated exercise that a chief digital officer and his or her team does.
Right.
It has to be clearly led by the business and enabled and partnered, by the digital and IT teams. So what we've done in our overall design is we did take out a good set of people, the best minds in the business, and we dedicated them 100% on transformation programs, right?
Right.
These are programs that look at new ways of working. These are programs that very clearly embeds technologies in solving key business problems. And
Right.
that is, I would say, over a period now become business as usual and the way of life
Right.
here at Vedanta. So yeah, I think probably in this case, to your question, it was more a conscious choice, and I think it's been quite fruitful for us because
Right.
this has become very useful in some of the transformation programs that we are running. The business is leading it and supported by the technology teams. Yeah.
Very interesting. Anand, there is very interesting debate which is going around IIoT, right? Industrial IoT, right? And I think many organizations, and many organizations with and industrial organizations, right, have been, either talking about it, have been deploying it in some parts and ways, right, and all of that, right. But it got more defined, right? As we went through this entire field, right? That there was a lot more clarity in terms of what was the output, what kind of data that got generated, and how that data was essentially moved into decision making, right? How has that been for you, right? Given that there is very large infrastructure play that you have across across your businesses, how has that particular bit been, right? How's the implementation side and adoption on that side been?
Yeah, so when I talk about industrial IoT, industrial analytics,
Right.
we've come through a journey here, right? So typically, maybe a few years back, in some of the businesses at least, the equipment and assets that we have, while they were connected and generating data, I don't think the data was used to analyze and build models and have the ability to either optimize it or predict
Right.
upcoming failures and so on. Right now, if I broadly talk about the group's approach, I think we've got a data strategy where we have information and data coming from all our sources,
Right.
both our enterprise data sources like the ERP and some of the non-ERP applications, and
Right.
also from our industrial environment, which is the operational technology domain, right?
Right.
So basic visibility of the data and analytics on that data is already in place,
Right.
and so it means people are able to take decisions based on past trends, analyzing past trends, and they get notified on any threshold breaches and so on.
Right.
We are now at a juncture where we are saying, can we create what the industry calls citizen data scientists?
Right.
So essentially, give people the platform, the training, and the enablement to develop their own predictive models. They don't have to depend anymore on a digital team or an external partner to at least develop the basic model. Because I mean, if you look at people in the business, whether it is the operations team, the maintenance team, or let's say a subsurface team,
Right.
finance team, they understand their domain and businesses well. They understand their data well.
Sure.
If you can enable them with the platform and give them the training, they'll be able to analyze and build models themselves. So we're really at a point where we're saying we have a data lake, we have the data approach. Can we now enable them and have them build their own models? I think that's where we are. I mean, IoT and IIoT, honestly, Ashu, I think most of these industries have had sensor data and sensor
Right.
data traveling over wireless for a good amount of time now, and having people look at this information and analyze it has also been there. But certainly it is now a lot more structured, a lot more deployed at scale than what it was earlier.
Right.
And I think we're now at a good place at Vedanta in terms of having the ability to analyze and take decisions based on historical asset data that we've got, and have also the ability to share this with our partners who
Right.
support us in this space, I would say.
Interesting. Anand, I have a question, right? Which is, and I've been a very big fan of market side data, right? In terms of costs and so many other things, right? Now, typically, what happened in many organizations, right? Operational Operational aspects continue to be, operate independently, and and the business side aspects continue to operate independently. It's something that you already highlighted, right? That's a sensible way, right? But and the biggest of all gaps was that one side of it was, of course, dealing with automation and and so many technologies that were implemented, right? So there was certain track that was there, but there was this half of it which was kind of not necessarily. They were dealing with a different kind of a data set, right? They were different, operating in a very different kind of environment, right? Which was a very market kind of environment, right? So there was no sort of no intersection. I mean, they were these two silos weren't really talking to each other, right? And essentially, what I'm trying to highlight in this in what I'm asking is that coming together, right? So how important is now all of this from a strategic planning standpoint, right? Because now you have the market side data was always available. Now this adoption is something which is taken, right? People have kind of adopted it. There are risks that can now be assessed. There is a lot of AI ML implementation which happens, right? Which makes it far more interesting, energetic, and visible, right? This relationship, right? From a strategic planning standpoint, right? How have you been navigating on ensuring that this relationship becomes all the more relevant, thicker? What are some of those things that have happened from a planning futuristic standpoint?
No, I think it's a very important point, Ashu, because for an industry like us, like you said,
Sure.
there is the manufacturing plant in the middle,
Right.
and then you have the sourcing side, and then the demand side, right? So essentially, it's important to optimize that complete flow,
Right.
right? I mean, you buy raw materials, the commodity prices, at that time there are seasonalities, there are
Right.
aspects, that determine the price of the raw materials, commodity that you buy. There is quality of the raw material and so on. And then of course you've got the plant level constraints, capacities, availability, and so on. And then there is the demand side, which again, given the situation in the last year and a half, 2 years, there have been changes to that. So really, I think one of the ways we've been, at least at the first level, addressing it is bring visibility across the value chain. So whether it is the CEO of the business or two levels down, and across various functions, it could be the planning function, it could be the production team, it could be the marketing team. Are they all looking at the same data from a single source of truth?
Right.
And are we able to give them exceptions on that data? Right. Let us say if the raw material price breaches a specific threshold, can we alert the buying team, right? Or let's say if there is a specific issue with an availability of an asset or equipment, the moment like you said, right, you need to break down the silos by providing them visibility to information across the value chain. And the more you are able to do that and give them triggers around changes that are happening, I think decisions and responses to those triggers are faster, and then which then helps optimize the overall end state. I think going forward, a lot of it today is still coming to a decision maker, a human taking a certain decision based on his or her judgment and driving actions in the ground. But I think increasingly with AI ML, it's going to be a lot more, I would say, machine driven, or at least machine augmented decisions, which could probably then require a human to just maybe approve the final decision, right? So it's probably getting a lot more autonomous in terms of when you look at activities across the value chain, which will then bring in more optimization. But for now, I think at least we're starting with providing visibility to information across the value chain to help optimize things.
And I think that's a very interesting starting point, right? I think transparency is very, very critical, and I think I think many other stakeholders will now be at least able to view the business side of things, right, and business understand the business complexities, which I think they weren't necessarily doing early on, right? So I think it really sort of brings the system together. Anand, one question which I'm particularly keen to ask you, right, is around cybersecurity, right? So what has happened is that given we have this renewed sort of focus towards digital transformation, right? And there is no other way, right? Given what we've seen, right? Also, the fact that organizations have realized that this is a better mechanics to operate, right? A hybrid mechanics to sort of operate, right? But this has also increased or made us more say fragile towards say cyber attacks, right? And cybersecurity related issues, right? In your case, while that exists, it's many folds deeper and higher because it's a distributed ecosystem that you work towards, right? How have you been looking at this, right? And what are some of the critical aspects that you think are very important going forward?
Yeah, clearly, with digital transformation and like I said, combining an integration of our plant technical systems with the enterprise system, we
Right.
are also then exposing, some of the core systems to potential vulnerabilities and attack from the internet, right? So clearly, that's been a conscious focus in terms of investments in this space.
Right.
We typically look at it in two dimensions, Ashu. So one is the enterprise security, which is the usual, ERP and non-ERP systems that we have.
Right.
More importantly, something that has been not been a focus in most industrial organizations, if I look at a couple of decades ago, is the security of our operational technology environment and the plant technical environment. Because increasingly you're connecting them to the internet and above, we are saying how do we now protect that set of systems. Obviously, today there are technologies available, whether it is a diode or a firewall or advanced software that can detect any potential threat that is coming and then prevent them. What is also happening in the industry is, again, we have a more of a competency and a people issue here that was addressed. In fact, again, when you look at people in the plant technical system, OT area, they understand the systems and that technology well, but they don't understand cybersecurity.
Right.
And clearly, there are cybersecurity professionals who understand cybersecurity but don't understand the plant system technology. In fact, a few years back, the oil and gas industry, for example, came up with a very specific certification around this area that tries to train people in both the domains, right? I mean, people who understand plant technical system and the cybersecurity technology. So we've also invested in some of that. So we've got people who understand that. It's important for for us to do that because if we have to protect our systems, we want competent, capable people who can drive those programs and make it happen.
Right.
One other large initiative by the industry is trying to make these systems more secure by design, right? Typically, if you look at the past, people created products and solutions that were deployed and you had to bolt on security technologies to protect them. But the industry is now saying, can we make these products secure by design? Which means if you plug a device into a network, does it already have all the prevention mechanisms already in place? So I think the digital ecosystem around us is starting to adopt some of those standards into their product roadmaps, which is also sort of helpful. But from our perspective, I think both on the enterprise side and more importantly on the plant technical system side, we continue to focus on investments around protecting our system. We're also very tuned in and collaborate with other operators and industries, to learn from them and also share our learnings in the space.
Interesting. Anand, are you, when you're talking about the sheer size that you operate at, right, and the sheer size that you have as an organization, as a group, right, is fairly large, right? Uh, Now, does that also means that, and of course, there are requirements that could be absolutely unique to the group, right, which are not necessarily, they're not necessarily solutions which will, can be picked up from the rack and can be implemented, right? There could be certain requirements, right? While of course vendors do that, while partners do that, are you also building an internal capability where there are certain tools, modules, systems that are being designed and developed internally? Is that part of the larger strategic thought process that you have?
Absolutely. I think, as part of the overall transformation agenda, one aspect is people. And in fact, we've sort of set up what we call a digital academy inside.
Interesting.
So three segments there, if I may, the way we are sort of looking at that one. One
Sure.
is the top 100 leaders in the company. I think they
Right.
need to understand the overall opportunity with digital, with the emerging concepts and areas that are out there. So
Right.
we've been sort of running master classes, for the top 100 leaders uh, from various partner organizations and also internal experts that we've
Right.
got. A second segment is about, as I would say, about 200 to 300 people who are getting specialized training in data science, analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning.
Right.
And these are training where they will sort of conclude with a capstone project, not in any area, but in the area of work that they have. So that
Right.
then directly, indirectly also benefits the organization because they have sort of solved a simple or a medium complexity problems for themselves. And then the third is, of course, almost like a digital 101 for all, because today we do believe that every individual in the organization needs to understand the changes that are happening in the technology space around us,
Right.
and then contribute in their own meaningful way. So clearly, capability building is a clear focus, and the digital academy that we have set up is what helping build that internal muscle, the internal capability. That's very important in this transformation journey.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Anand, there are many, many startups, right? I think, as a country, we have an aspiration of becoming a, startup nation, right? I think Israel is clearly an example. I think there's a lot of work which is happening in the US, and I think in India, given the kind of engineering depth that we had, at least the aspiration depth that we had, kind of so many colleges, so many students, so on and so forth, right? That essentially meant that many technology startups are going to come from the ecosystem. I think that the space is also kind of evolving, right? We have many, many entrepreneurs who are now, kind of starting up, right? And they're creating a lot of solutions around the data analytics, intelligence, decision making, right? With the course core in AI and ML and so on and so forth, right? Have you been engaging as an organization, right, with some of these startups? Right, there's some great startups which are doing a lot of work on surveillance, right, on infrastructure health, right? So have you been engaging with startups in any of these areas? And is that one off, or is there a certain method to it? Is there a certain structure to it, right, that you are kind of say putting together, or in future you see that that relationship is going to increase and improve?
No, I think topic very close to heart, Ashu. In fact, at Vedanta, we've been engaging and encouraging startups for a good amount of time now, right? I think
Right.
the last 3, 4 years, we've been working with a variety of startups. In fact, as we say inside, we see ourselves also as a large startup, right? So,
Right.
uh, one important thing. So we in October last year we
Right.
launched this whole global open innovation program. We called it Vedanta Spark.
Wow.
The idea was to invite global startup ecosystem to sort of come work with us.
Right.
Interestingly, over a 4, 5 month period, we had about 1,400 odd startups
Wow.
applying across the globe.
Right.
From I think 9 or 10 different countries. Of course, India big time, but also North America, Australia, and some of the other geographies.
Right.
What we did was then we did put a structure to it, as you asked. So we took this 1,400. In fact, we had a startup incubator partner by name Forge, who helped us in this whole process. So we pretty much screened the 1,400 startups to a sizable amount. About 200 of them is what we sort of screened it to. Now,
Right.
this 200 were evaluated typically through a startup pitch sort of an approach. I mean, more like the Shark Tank thing, right? I mean, they come pitch for about
Right.
7-8 minutes. And almost, I would say, 300 to 400 people across Vedanta. They evaluated these 200 startups, and then we had a very structured scoring mechanism through which we narrowed down to the top 50. Then I think the leadership and the steering committee spent a lot of time. Then we narrowed it down to about 23 that we have announced in the last month as the top winners of the Spark program. And they'll be now piloting with us across our businesses. Now, there are obviously what we've done now is we're going to not only pilot with these startups, we're going to make this a recurring program at Vedanta. I mean, reaching out to startups, evaluating them, and continuing to partner with them, pilot them, potentially even looking at investments in them, right? The softer aspect of this has been that because 300 or 400 of our people evaluated them, they understood their offering. I think it has opened up minds of people, right? I mean, they've seen new possibilities,
Right.
new innovation, very niche innovation, industry innovation
Right.
that these startups have come up with. So it's really helped us, from a transformation standpoint, and a lot of excitement that has created within Vedanta. I'm certainly looking forward to taking it to the next level over the next 6-8 months, I will say.
Wonderful. Anand, are you also, so while, and I see the twinkle in the eye, right, when you say that, right? And I think I can understand where you're coming from, right? I think the freshness and perspective can be absolutely phenomenal, right? And I think and that just helps you operate so much better, right? Anand, is there something that you're doing to create more and more entrepreneurs in the organization? Because there are many youngsters who come on board, right? Who are not necessarily, say, entrepreneurs, who for whatever reason that they couldn't choose to be entrepreneurs, but they carry the same mindset, right? So is there something that you're doing to cultivate that a sense of entrepreneurship by creating many entrepreneurs in the organization?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ashu, like I said, I mean, right from the chairman to the top management and all of us, we like to believe, like I said, that we are a startup as well in our own right.
Right.
To your question, in fact, a very recent, interesting internal, I would say competition we launched. We called it the Digital Olympics,
Right.
where we invited people to come forward with an idea.
Right.
It is not so much around conceptualizing a new business, but it is about coming up with an idea of internal transformation. And the incentivization on that was that if we gained as an organization from the transformation, then the idea owner and the idea owning team also would then get a share of that gain from the transformation. So clearly, like you said, the idea was to incentivize, motivate people to come forward, bring their ideas and execute them, and enable them to sort of make it happen. I certainly think this is already like sowing the seed for building entrepreneurs within the company. And then someday, I'm pretty sure that we'll probably be building new businesses with some of the young minds that we've got here.
Right. Right. Interesting. Anand, I was recently in a conversation with a CTO of a very large startup, right? I was essentially talking to him about the product management process that they have, right? And there's something very interesting, like what you said, right? There's something very interesting that he highlighted. He said that we have brought our product managers are not product managers anymore, right? They have a business role to take care of, right? Because our primary mechanics of delivery is now digital, right? And he said that. We were essentially talking about creating more and more entrepreneurs, right? One thing which is very unique and also is something that you highlighted, right, is that how you incentivize such champions. I think is also a very, very important mechanic, right? And I think you're absolutely right, because with that kind of an incentivization, there's a very different motivation that you are kind of building, right? And there's a certain, a very slow but a very definitive effect that you are doing on the DNA of the organization, right? In terms of how we think and the longevity of it, right? Which is very interesting.
In fact, Head Start, and again, something very unique to Vedanta, Ashu, is that the DNA of the organization and the culture is that, or the practice is that give people who are young
Right.
and have the energy, the responsibility, even if they may not have the experience, around that space, right? I mean, so it's almost like very strongly experimenting, but at the same time enabling them to succeed in the role.
Right.
So that was always there. And if I look at the digital transformation area, that's been of immense help, because people who sort of maybe fresh out of management colleges or engineering colleges, who spend 2 3 years 4 years very adept in technology,
Right.
if we give them the enablement around understanding certain areas of the business, then they're able to quickly help bring new ideas and transformation within the company. So I think that's been a very I would say good head start for us, because the
Right.
company and the group already believes in giving people responsibilities, and take the risk around that, and enable them to succeed there.
Interesting. And we're towards the end of the conversation, possibly last two questions, right? I have for you. I was in a very interesting discussion with Cody Sims, who's part of the Techstars team, and he's somebody who champions the cause of sustainability, right? And across the conversation, one thing Cody kind of highlighted is that the role of chief digital officers, CIOs, CTOs in the organization will not only be to transform, right, or manage transformation from, say, the earlier avatar into being a far more technology savvy and dependent company, but their role will also essentially be to evangelize sustainability, right? Because when you're bringing in so much more transparency in the system, that leads into better decision making and also sustainability. And that is something which is going to be the way forward, right? Or what we've experienced in 2020, this is something which is going to be very, very important, right? Organizations will have to behave responsibly, and CDOs will essentially carry this responsibility, right? Do you agree with that, right? And is that a big responsibility on the shoulders of chief digital officers, chief information officers across all the organizations? What are your thoughts about that?
No, absolutely. I think particularly very relevant for an organization like us, because environment, sustainability, governance overall uh,
Right.
is the focus. Now it's always been, I would say, again, an accelerated focus here. I mean, even health, safety, environment, it's almost like a social license to operate sort of a requirement for us, right? Uh, and ESG, looking at net zero, things like that, absolutely very important. Digital, I believe, Ashu has also a great role to play there. While I think many of the initiatives around this area has to be also very structural in nature,
Right.
but even if I look at process optimization, energy consumption optimization, heat related aspects, right? So there are things that digital can certainly help optimize, with all the emerging technologies, with AI and ML and other things that are in place. And I think also from a collaboration standpoint, right? I mean, when you have to learn with other partners, suppliers, customers, digital again comes to the fore in terms of sustainability and governance. So I absolutely agree. Also a space that is evolving very fast. So I think an opportunity to also continually learn, from global peers on what's happening, and then
Right.
try to bring it to our context. So certainly agree there. Yeah, I would say.
Wonderful. Anand, you know, you you've been a digital leader, right? You're leading this transformation of a very, very large enterprise, right? that also makes you, you're in a very unique position to visualize, some of the key changes that are happening, right? And not as, say, the practitioner, but more as, say, an observer, right? What are some of those things that excite you? What are some of the next, or next 2 3 years? What are some of the things that excite you, right? That these are things that are going to be pivotal to how we're going to look like as an economy, right? And how we're going to engage across internal systems and external systems, right? And some of that, right? So, what are some of those things that particularly excite you, and that you think are going to play out in the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I think, I mean, certainly excites me. It also, I would say, intrigues me a little bit is this whole aspect of future of work, right? I think
Right.
we always talk about automation, hyper automation,
Right.
things becoming autonomous, whether it is, the cars that are on the road, or the industrial plant environments that we work in, right?
Right.
So the one thing is certainly, we will, in all roles, continue to be largely aided by algorithms and machines.
Right.
I don't think they will ever take over in that sense, but
Right.
I think our ability to work with them, I mean, it's increasingly invaded our personal lives. I think in our professional lives as well.
Right.
I think that's going to be the reality. I think that's the exciting part as well, because I think it will also make life easy for us. I think it will
Right.
help us think and focus on slightly different things that we probably don't have time for.
Right.
So that's the exciting bit, and the other bit I would say is the ability to continually stay in touch with all of the fast changing technologies that are out there, right? And
Right.
how, and sort of applying them to our business in solving problems or addressing opportunities. Um, that's I think certainly what keeps me going, and again, solving problems at the intersection of understanding a business area and a truly emerging technology, whether it is, let's say, quantum computing or 3D printing or whatever.
Right.
That's what I think is exciting, and that's what I would say that people in this space are also excited about.
Right. Anand, how I wish we could continue this conversation, right, around so many focused aspects. I think this was more a macro discussion, but I look forward to having you with us, and discussing some very very key focused aspects, right? But thank you so much for taking the time out. It was a pleasure to have you with us. Look to have you
Yeah,
with us.
thank you so much, Ashu.
Bye.